Okay, we'll start with this. A fight that kind of crept upon us and is now happening in the shadow, the background of this weekend's big mega match at heavyweight. After all that is said and done, down there at lightweight, Top Rank is staging a fight between three-division champion Emmanuel Navarette and unbeaten up-and-comer Denis Berinchyk. Mexico versus the Ukraine.
Put a vacant WBO title at lightweight.
Experience certainly is on Emmanuel Navarette's side, sporting a professional record of 38 wins with 1 loss, 1 draw, 31 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 40 professional bouts. To unbeaten Denis Berinchyk, who sports an unblemished record of 18 wins with no losses, no draws, 9 knockouts.
There is a legitimate argument that even though Emmanuel is the one moving up in weight, this is actually a step up in class for Denis.
Because he's never been in there with somebody like this, that Emmanuel Navarette has fought a higher grade, a higher tier of fighter than Denis has had the opportunity to face so far across 3 divisions, 3 weight classes: Isaac Dogbay,
Pitufo Diaz,
Oscar Valdez, more recently Robson Conceição. That comparatively, Emmanuel really has fought the better fighters, has more rounds in the bank, brings a lot more experience to the table than Denis does. Denis, who last saw action in August of last year, seems he's been out a while. It's the only fight that he had last year.
He's been averaging 1 fight a year for the last 2 years.
36 years old, 6 or 7 years older than Emmanuel Navarette. So not only is experience on Emmanuel's side,
Youth is too, because he's the younger man. A deadly combination.
tack on activity, that in the previous year, Emmanuel was a lot more active than Denis Berinchyk, where Denis only fought once, Emmanuel fought 3 times.
That's what's working for Emmanuel.
What's working for Denis is that in some ways he's the naturally bigger man. If nothing else, he's more acclimated to this weight, lightweight, than Emmanuel Navarette is. Emmanuel's making his lightweight debut, where Denis, this is where he's been. Denis is best described as an aggressive boxer-puncher, almost bordering on a pressure guy, how aggressive this guy is. A well-schooled amateur.
Unbeaten in the pros.
Shows fantastic coordination, great footwork, great movement, great angles. He's a little bit of Lomachenko and a little bit of Berinchyk, his countryman, his Ukrainian countryman. He reminds me a little bit of both, though not having competed at the same level that they have. He does seem untested.
But that is what's working for him, that he's acclimated to this weight where Emmanuel isn't.
Not but 3 fights ago, we saw Emmanuel make his super featherweight debut, and then like now, he was facing an unbeaten and somewhat untested up-and-comer, an unbeaten, untested up-and-comer in Liam Wilson. But the fact that Liam was so much bigger than your average Emmanuel Navarette opponent, you could see he was giving Emmanuel a hard time. He got knocked down in that fight.
It took some getting used to.
Emmanuel has always had a lot of size for 122, a lot of size for 126. Upon moving up to 130, he took some shots because he was fighting a bigger guy than he's used to fighting. And you see that it took some getting used to. Well, that's the situation this weekend.
That's the intrigue.
Once again, Emmanuel is moving up in weight, and he's making his debut against an unbeaten and somewhat untested up-and-comer.
But the guy can fight, and the guy can move.
Throws very short hooks and combinations, mid-range to inside. That appears to be Denis Berinchy's sweet spot, where he does his best work. He's got great feet and great movement.
And even though he's not the strongest lightweight around, does he need to be for a guy who's moving up in weight? I anticipate that Denis is going to make Emmanuel look human in spots in all the same ways that Liam Wilson made Emmanuel look human in spots. That the aesthetic of this fight,
You know what it might look like? It might look something like Berinchyk versus Munguia, if you can remember that fight. That fight also featured a Mexican fighter versus a Ukrainian fighter.
just like this one.
There were moments where you saw Sergey really hurt Jaime Munguia and matched his aggression with aggression, chose to fight fire with fire.
Fantastic looking fight. Great TV fight.
And I think this weekend's fight is going to be a great TV fight because Emmanuel and Denis are both mid-range to inside fighters, aggressive ones.
Emmanuel's got experience on his side, but arguably, Denis has size. He's acclimated to this weight. He's used to taking punches here.
Giving punches in all the ways that Emmanuel Navarette grinded it out and grinded down Liam Wilson to secure the W. I expect him to do that this weekend. I expect that Emmanuel will become a 4-division champion. He will procure the WBO title in the lightweight division, but I do think he's going to have to work for it.
Experience counts.
Emmanuel Navarette does a lot of pushing in a fight, if you know what I mean. He's the one pushing the pace, pressing the issue, but he's used to being pushed back. You know, he was pushed back by Pitufo Diaz. He was pushed back by Robson Conceição. I mean, he's just more used to being in an even fight with a higher tier of fighter than anybody that Dennis has fought so far, and I think that matters, that Emmanuel has been in wars before. And it may seem cynical, but it also helps that Emmanuel Navarette is the fighter that Top Rank is invested in. Let's not kid ourselves. If they have to give him special consideration, they might.
They will.
Emmanuel's coming off that draw with Robson Conceição at 130. I don't know that he knocks this guy out at 135, so I'm going to go conservative. I'm going to go with Emmanuel Navarette by way of a points decision. He'll do enough to beat the guy, at least in the judges' eyes. He'll do enough. He'll do enough to beat him. He'll do enough to win the WBO title.
He'll look human in spots. He will have to work for it.
But I think he's going to get the job done this weekend. That's what I think. But I don't think he should move up any further. I would say, given how fleshy Emmanuel looked at 130 and how he might look at 135, he shouldn't move up anymore. Men's heavyweight news ahead of this weekend's big mega match. Confusion over the weight as to what Oleksandr Usyk actually weighed when it was announced. They said he weighed in at 233. Well, it turns out he didn't actually weigh in at 233. It was 223. Miscommunication.
That's really only 3 pounds more than what he normally weighs. At or around 221.
It's a good thing that I wasn't in a rush to react to that snafu like some other content creators trying to interpret what it means if Usyk comes in 10 pounds or 12 pounds heavier than he normally does. It turns out it's business as usual for Usyk. He's weighing at or around what he normally weighs, behaving
same as ever.
He had a message for Tyson Fury, something that he's been saying throughout, something that he's been saying all throughout the build-up to this weekend's mega match.
We get a message to Fury, a final message.
Don't be afraid. I will not leave you alone tomorrow.
Very zany Oleksandr Usyk. I didn't give it much thought at first as to what he meant. What he means when he says that he's not going to leave Tyson Fury alone here right before the fight. I get the sense that pressure and putting pressure on Tyson Fury is the strategy. Given the occasion, the size and scale of the event, more pressure than you normally see Usyk put on a guy, more pressure than perhaps Tyson Fury is used to.
A lot of time has been spent talking about the intangibles. Tyson Fury's scar tissue, the cut over his eye from a few months ago, and whether or not that'll be an issue in this fight, as well as the psychology of the fighters, the mental makeup.
Tyson Fury seems rattled to me. I've said that before, I'll say it here again. Comparing how he behaved yesterday and how he behaved today,
he seems nervous.
He seems nervous to me. I think Oleksandr Usyk makes him nervous. I think that he's rattled.
He didn't want this.
The way that he wouldn't look him in the eyes yesterday and how he was in a rush to get in his face very briefly, earlier today.
He didn't hold his gaze or anything like that. There wasn't a face-off or a stare-down. Not really.
He just doesn't seem as confident to me as he did going into the Klitschko fight, going into the 3 Wilder fights. He doesn't appear the same guy, behaving the same way. When I look at him, he looks like a guy who's nervous.
Don't offend the Tyson Fury fans. They're on edge right now.
Very testy, very combative, going out of their way to let people know they're backing Tyson Fury, even when people don't ask them.
What do you want me to do about that?
I can only tell you what I think. And if you want to know what I think and you're here, you came here.
So if you want to know what I think and you're here, so I'll assume that you do, Tyson Fury looks rattled. I think he looks rattled. I think his fans are rattled.
I think the popular periodicals and boxing media would prefer for Tyson Fury to win this weekend's fight.
They're all backing him too.
Because they want him, need him, to live up to the reputation they have built around him, which is all really centered around the Deontay Wilder fights, those 3 fights, because before that, nobody was talking about Tyson Fury in that scope, in that context. They want him to win.
I don't think he's going to.
Because this is not a one-handed puncher with poor coordination, poor cardio, and 2 left feet he's facing now. What he's facing now is a guy who has consistently competed at the highest levels in the amateurs and at the highest levels in the pros. At the highest levels at cruiserweight and the highest levels at heavyweight. This ain't Wilder.
That's why I'm picking Usyk to win.
I don't see why that would or should bother any of you, but like I said, it seems like the Fury fans are extra testy the day before the fight. My reasoning, my rationale. Fury out of his own mouth said he struggles with smaller fighters. He does better against bigger guys that make for a bigger target because they don't have his range of motion or his athleticism.
He has that over them, but he doesn't have that over Usyk. He's not actually more athletic.
Yeah, he's pretty athletic for a guy who's 6'7", 6'8". He moves well for a man that size, but he doesn't move better than Usyk.
In the build-up, all you've heard people say is that Fury is too big and too strong for him. And then I look over at Fury and look at all the weight that he's lost.
All they can tell you about is Fury's height advantage or his reach advantage, a bit of a weight advantage. All they talk about is Fury's size when it doesn't look like he plans on mowing Usyk down. No, he wants to move lateral, stay on his back foot, try to bring the smaller man to him and set a trap.
Why isn't that gonna work?
Usyk's movements are shorter and more controlled. He's not all the way in and he's not all the way out. He's in and out the whole time, bouncing in and out of striking distance. I think he has better timing at this stage than Tyson Fury does. I think he's gonna land that lead left hand from out of the southpaw stance.
His backhand.
Snap Tyson Fury's head back. I think he's gonna open up that cut. How I think it's gonna go. Fury might be able to hang early in the early goings of the fight, say the first quarter, maybe parts of the second.
Like Tony Bellew did.
But just like in the Tony Bellew fight, I think the pace is going to wear on Tyson Fury, who hasn't been in a real war, a real fight, in a long time. That is, unless you want to count the fight with Francis Ngannou as a real fight.
If you do, that's not a good thing.
Because it wasn't supposed to be. That was supposed to be a showcase fight. And what did Fury showcase?
That he's not so slick, his defense is not so impregnable, that a novice boxer, an MMA fighter crossing over into boxing, can't land on him.
He can, and he did. And if he did, then so can Usyk. I figured it'll be competitive in the first quarter and parts of the second. That's where Usyk will start to pick up the pace, and that's where the pace will start to wear on Tyson Fury. I think there's a difference in speed.
Fury looks fast next to slow guys.
I think he's going to look slow next to Usyk. He's going to keep that lead hand out there, that flick jab, to try to catch Usyk coming in to set up the backhand.
Instead, he's going to end up eating Usyk's backhand because I think Usyk has more speed and better timing.
Not completely sure if Fury plans on fighting this fight from out of the orthodox or southpaw stances.
Still don't know.
But I don't really think it matters because I think Usyk is better out of the southpaw stance than Fury is out of any stance.
Jesus, you're making it sound one-sided.
That's not what I said. I said it's going to be competitive in the first quarter and parts of the second, and Usyk, like he characteristically does, he's going to pick up the pace in the middle, and that's going to wear on Fury, who's going to start to slow down, start taking punches.
More punches than you normally see Fury take. I think there are going to be knockdowns, at least 2. And I think it's Usyk's intention to take this fight out of the judge's hands. If he's smart, he'll know not to trust them.
So many people want Tyson Fury to win this fight, and I'm sure that Usyk is aware of that. That even Eddie Hearn wants Fury to win this thing so that they can then set up a Joshua fight sometime afterwards.
For all the belts.
They still can, even if Tyson Fury loses, but if Tyson Fury loses, it won't be for all the belts, may not be for any of them.
But they can still do it.
That's not the point. The point I'm making is I'm sure Usyk is aware that there are a lot of people out there who would prefer to see Tyson Fury win.
He knows.
So when I see him say to Tyson Fury, more than once, more than twice, more than thrice, don't worry, I'm not gonna leave you alone. I get the sense that he's gonna put a lot of pressure on Tyson Fury.
Get inside on him.
He wants to, in what is a deliberate effort to drain Tyson Fury, force him to work, even when he doesn't want to, even when he wants to go for a walk or create some space, take a break, step out of the pocket.
Usyk wants to keep him working.
He doesn't want to leave him alone. That's what I think he means. There's been so much talk about Tyson Fury's body transformation, the weight loss. He was about 277 with Ngannou.
I think he's 260-something now, 263.
I don't think the weight loss helps. I think he weakened himself and weakened his punch resistance, what punches he can take and where, by trying to be more fit and trim.
His neck looks thin.
Taking punches, your neck is your shock absorber to keep your brain from jostling inside your skull due to the G-force. When a punch lands, it sends your head in one direction, and due to the G-force, your brain jostles inside in the opposite direction. That's what results in knockouts.
And Fury's got a thin neck.
I feel like it's all coming full circle for Tyson Fury. All of his bad habits and the way that he abused his body over the years with drugs and alcohol, in tandem with the propaganda, the hyperbole.
He's supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
He hasn't been that active in recent years. In the last 2 years, his last 2 fights were an MMA fighter
and a pointless trilogy with Derek Chisora.
He hasn't been in a fight in a while where he was pushed, whereas Oleksandr Usyk, comparatively, he was pushed in that Daniel Dubois fight.
Compare his last 2 fights to Tyson Fury's last 2 fights.
Daniel Dubois in the last one, and Anthony Joshua before that. And the both of those guys, they outweighed Oleksandr Usyk. They were bigger than Oleksandr Usyk. At this point, he's used to it. He's acclimated.
I do not think that Tyson Fury is a bigger puncher than those men.
I don't think Tyson Fury is a bigger puncher than Daniel Dubois. I certainly don't think he's a bigger puncher than Anthony Joshua. They share 5 common opponents, and Anthony knocked all of them out. Tyson Fury only knocked out 1.
I don't think he's a bigger puncher than Anthony. I don't.
Usyk took Anthony's punches. He took Anthony's power for 24 rounds.
I think he can take Fury's.
Not just because of what we've seen so far, but because of the occasion and the need to rise to it. I have the sneaking suspicion that Usyk may show us a side of himself, pull something else out of the toolbox that perhaps we haven't seen before. And I think he means to put Fury under a lot of pressure.
He wants to drain him, drain his battery. He wants to stop him.
And I think he's going to. I'm going with Oleksandr Usyk by way of knockout or technical knockout late. And no, it's not due to Usyk's concussive power, it's due to his cardio.
And his work rate.
It's because keeping up with a smaller man is going to be harder on the energy reserves of the bigger man.
I think exhaustion is going to get to Fury. Usyk is going to pile on.
Say round 9, round 10, he takes him out. That's what I think.
If for some reason that bothers you, then what the fuck are you doing here listening to me for?
Go do something with yourself.